Just that. Cool.
So yeah, we were talking about beer this morning. Well,
Yes.
your evening.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to get work from me, definitely the way to do that is to me with beer.
Yeah, and so it seemed to work. That first time seemed to work. I don't know. I don't think it was a pattern at that point, but I do know that there was plenty of other drinking opportunities during that era.
The one do I guess it was kind of I don't remember you. I don't remember if you were or not at that point, but back in the early days, when we were all still new there, we'd be working long hour days, all getting overtime because obviously the game was doing well. This is like pretty much when I was still so like, and there was a gathering of some extent at Brad and Michelle's house, or we went out for dinner or something like that.
Right.
Like let off steam after working 60-hour, 80-hour weeks, whatever it was at the time.
Oops.
So that's what also got me into the whole never really was much of a hard alcohol person. Like that's really like now I'll do a bourbon or whiskey, but not really anything else.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with whatever. Matter of fact, every once in a while, it's fun to mix it up. There's a franchise taco place here called the Taco Bar, and it's like it's it's hard to describe. I mean, it's better than Taco Bell, but it's still just kind of fast food. Don't really eat there anymore, but I do appreciate their frozen margarita because there's not a lot of places around here that have them.
Yeah.
So
I'm always down for a margarita too.
Yeah, Jasmine and I got a couple of those Saturday night. It was nice because it's been warm here. Like it's felt super hot here, so I actually converted the temperature to figure out what it was, and it was only like 86 degrees. I'm like, oh, weird. Gotten used to the cold.
That's pretty warm.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? So I've switched regions to US West to see if that would help with your breaking up. What I'd be curious to see from folks in chat is whether or not you're seeing anything like drop frames or hitching or anything like that aside from the little bit of problems on Todd's side. EQ Mule says, "Oh, the taco bar. They have really, really good enchiladas there. We may have to try them." I just think, you know how every once in a while you eat someplace like that, and then you don't have a good bathroom experience within like the day of eating there, and then it goes on your list of like places that you don't necessarily want to eat the food at again, but will drink the alcohol. That's where they're at for me.
Yeah, so I think the issues related to drop frames is actually a Discord issue.
Yeah.
Because I don't see anything on stream that looks like anything. I think Discord's just not in a happy place.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is I may try the. So it's called like OBS Ninja, and I may try that soon. We don't have to do it here, but I may try that soon and see if it's too difficult for folks to sort of use or whatever. But in theory, all it is it just creates a link. You open a link in your browser. As long as your browser can have access to your video and voice, which if you're doing like Zoom or Google Hangouts or something like that already, then it should be fine.
Yeah, I mean the only other option I could do is try adjusting my upload because, like I showed you earlier, US upload speeds are just complete crap. And I don't know if I turn something up to increase like the video quality, but I'm looking at the speed right now, and it's actually interesting. It's pretty much 0, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah, because now after like going with wired connection here and checking those speeds, I'm more confident.
Yeah,
on our end.
I'm uploading around just under 1 megabit, so I should be fine. I don't think it'll be an issue. It's pretty steady.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna name the US internet infrastructure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to think here, but now that I'm like actually wired in, I'm in theory pretty impressed. I ran a test earlier and it hit 1.2 gigs, and I was like, okay.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't, from a fiber standpoint, fiber is like just down the block. It hasn't come into our neighborhood because before this whole quarantine, they would keep knocking on my door going, hey, do you guys want to switch to fiber? And I'm like, can't. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, check your maps. We're already checked. But Time Warner's, or well, now it's Spectrum. It's been fairly positive.
Yeah, I don't know. I just assumed that it wasn't that great a quality here, and now I kind of feel like an asshole because I've just spent like 3 years in this apartment, and when all I had to do is run a damn $20 cable through the apartment, and had just outstanding internet. All right, well, maybe these last 6 months will make up for it then. Cool. So I'm going to switch region again to Europe. And see what happens. So Vulork, I noticed an article or like a post from a while back. After 2 days of like digging and everything and just having the same issue with the bitrate dropping out. So the bitrate's actually, I'm looking at now, I don't know what you're seeing, but on my end it's extremely stable, and it's riding between 41, 4700. I've got 4% drop frames, but that's fairly normal, I think. What it was it seems like OBS updated something and it rechecked a box that basically did a dynamic what was it called? It was in advanced, and if you scroll all the way down in advanced, you'll find a little network area, and then within that, it was dynamically changed bitrate based on frame loss. And so what was happening was it was always starting out with a nice bitrate, and then it was just degrading quickly and staying there. So OBS was varying my bitrate, yes. And it was just basically killing it. And the second I unchecked that, everything has been good. So from there, I basically spent the rest of the day today tweaking with different output settings and looking at, all right, what encoding do I want to use, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I can play with that, but I decided to update my NVIDIA drivers, go back to hardware in VicNew, put up the bitrate to about 4500 to see what's going on. Now that I have a wired connection, that's perfect because I'm going from about 30 upload to 7 or 800 upload, so that should be good. Did something happen to your volume levels? I got your stream cranked. So yeah, I was playing around with Keebs. I was playing around with trying to get rid of voice meter and go back to something normal. Yeah, casual 20x bandwidth improvement. Yeah, I don't know. Audio wise, things are fairly. I haven't messed with it that much over here. So, Keebs, what are you not hearing? I'll turn. I can turn Todd up a little bit more. Volume is fine. Miami Rice says. All right. Okay. EQ Mule, you're both coming through perfectly clear. Right on. Yeah, I think the occasional skipping and hitching is probably more Discord than anything at this point.
Yeah, I think it's Discord too, because I had this problem at all my first stream. And I'm getting it through your side also, and I think you're getting it through my side, and the common factor here is Discord.
Yeah. So Hobart's lower than you for me, and Vulork is saying I'm lower than Hobart. So I am.
No, they're both saying that I'm louder.
Oh. Sorry. I misread that. I can. One, I can get closer to the mic. Two, I've just cranked up the setting a little bit in. Basically it's cranked as far as it's going to go in OBS. I can go back to voice meter and look at the input. Hardware input, select device. We'll go to trust microphone. But now that it echoes. All right. I don't mind being a little bit quieter. As long as if you can hear me, then that's fine.
I'm looking through the questions for guests on Discord. It's some pretty good questions in here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we want to save them for like a scheduled stream. We can I don't mind repeating too, because I'll probably remember extra stuff after we.
I say it would be if you don't mind repeating it, then it will provide value as I continue to fiddle with knobs and try to unfrick my setup here. Then the fact that you're answering questions will provide at least a little value for these folks who are kind enough to sit here and deal with this bullshit.
Yeah. So one of the
if there's
questions,
a marvelous answer, we'll clip it. We'll just clip it.
I don't actually. How do I see who's all in stream? Can I see a list of names? Users in chat. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to see if this user was in here. But I think like various other people would find this useful. Like again, on Discord, specifically about plane of fear itemization and plane itemization. Guys, I wish I knew, because it is always frustrated me, and why there would be drops that offer stats that are not valuable to a class. I was just looking at I play a Druid on Aerodune, so I was doing a. Anyways, there was just druid crap rotten in Fear, and I think the druid armor in Fear is just abysmal. It's the worst of probably. And yeah, I was looking at the stats and like, guys, why do I need index or whatever the crap it was on there? I kind of know why. Not to say that it is good, but there was some concept around having like some type of balanced stat stuff around classes, and it was somewhat valuable, but going to go, hey, I want X, even though it might have some usefulness, really not much for casters. I think it was just the intent was to make it a little bit more valuable, and then it never happened because they didn't want classes competing for gear that wasn't really geared for them. Like who wouldn't get the most benefit, right? So you wouldn't want an ink class going for a lot of strength in dex or agility items. Like if there was an increased chance to crit based on one of those stats or some crap like that. So I think it's just a leftover. And then there was the big push or the big schema around stuff once it's been released. I mean, that was a lot of times, other than nerfing the extreme, once you release something that you weren't allowed to change, to get the approval process for something that on live already was, if I remember correctly, it was a huge pain in the ass. But I'm really surprised the team hasn't for the time lock servers. This of all the other changes that have been made to improve make classes, make the experience generally better. Like I'm really surprised they haven't fixed these items. And I say fixed versus just update, because to me they seem broken.
Is it? Yeah, I'm curious if it's just given the list of things to address, if it just, especially given the amount of time that you're going to spend. Like how long is it? You guys in chat know this, like, but how long until that stuff's relatively deprecated anyway?
Well, it's 3 months, right? I mean, until it unlocks. So I'm actually pulling up something because we talked about this a little bit earlier when we were doing the tech test. Since I don't have a website handy, I'm looking at like all the druid items from Planet Sky, right? So I have like all my quest stuff from, and I just, oh god, yeah, we did it there too. That sucks. At the Drake hide mask, 10 strength, 10 dex, 10 agility for a druid. Yeah, that must be great. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I could have sworn that by the time I started raiding with my guild, because I was coming in, to them late.
Wait, it has 10 wisdom now?
10 wisdom.
It probably got updated to my old list.
But I could have sworn that I just went like from crafted for my warrior to Velius gear, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and see, that's not bad. I mean, the 10 mana is kind of a slap in the face, but 10 strength, sure. Carry more craft. You're a druid. You're always a kind of a loot whore. Cool. But anyways, like the main question was around the other planes, like fear and hate. Like, why haven't those been updated? And that's a good question. I mean, if we went through and made other plane items better, I would like to see those updated, especially for the time lock progression server, because there's no. You should, as someone leveling that, like, right? You should be like, when am I going to get to the plains? When am I going to get to the plains? But right now, like, I don't, maybe Sean, are you excited to looking forward to taking a group to the plains? Is that like on your to-do list?
It actually, it kind of is, because I felt like originally I kind of skipped it.
I've spent a decent amount of time in Fear and Hate in my old school days. I don't know. I kind of wish the mechanics were better there, but it's not too bad.
So I was watching Keebs. Keebs had a group in Hate earlier today, and so I was watching that on his stream, and like I was actually super amped at the idea of being able to get in a group like that and do that. Like I would love to go up there and have sort of a chill farming opportunity, let alone a couple raids. But so I am actually looking forward to it.
Yeah, Knots. I think that's the revamped Hate, because the original Hate, the original was, holy crap, that was not a good experience. Like having to run along the ceiling to a corner, dragging corpses there because they would always aggro running to the wall or running along the wall. Yeah, that wasn't the best experience.
I'm not Twitch. Hello. Keep said, yeah, we did most of the instance for armor mobs. And Bulork said we had Terror bug out, camped the zone, and in Fear Underworld yesterday. That was fun. Yeah. Any other questions stand out to you on the list, Todd?
There was a decent number of Alcabor questions. I think even Mule, since you're in chat, we could probably go. Let me scroll up and take a look at your wall of text. Actually, he was the post. No, it's just like a wall of text.
I am not Twitch. Was EQ the first 3D MMO? So I think it depends on how you look at it. Meridian 59 was 3D.
Yeah, Meridian 59, I think, was the first. One of the first.
But EQ was the first commercially successful. I'd say first commercially successful 3D MMO, because I didn't want to step on UO, right? UO was commercially successful, but not in the same way, and over time, not to the same degree. But it also wasn't 3D.
And I want to say that Meridian 59 didn't require a 3D card. But EverQuest certainly did. Because I think Smed and others talk about that, on a regular basis, about of releasing something that actually requires a significant hardware upgrade for most people.
So I'm trying to think if my gateway actually had a 3D card, though. I thought it just had like the onboard 3D chip. Or
No, like, I'm trying to think of what. The first time I played EverQuest was I had a Fire GL card. It was a Fire GL 1000, or maybe that was just Fire GL. Fire GL 1000 was like the 3D rendering card that like professionals would use to do 3D rendering, or would just do renderings in general. It was just Fire GL, and then we went to the Voodoo, and then my next one was the Voodoo Sly, with getting the second Voodoo, which was awesome. And then Voodoo 3. I don't remember like from Voodoo 2 Voodoo 3, like what the actual upgrades were. Yeah, I am not. I mean, it's. I would check it out. I mean, it's free to play. You won't be able to play on Airdoom, since you need an all access membership to play on that. But it's interesting if you want to kind of get an idea of, especially if you start in one of the classic cities. So, don't start in Freeport since it's the revamped Freeport. Start in Kinos or one of the other cities that hasn't been revamped. An idea of like what 3D was back then. And keep in mind, the game that has art, but like looking at your stream where you're sitting, that's already been revamped once. That classic version you're seeing was already revamped. So I don't remember if you were paying attention back in Luckland. I was end of Canuck Luckland. We did a full texture revamp of all the zones, and that was done by a third party where they actually just kind of cracked the file and injected new art resources. So these are already higher res textures that you're looking at compared to what the old stuff was.
Like I feel like I know that, you know what I mean? Like, but I might just be jumping on like, oh yeah, now I remember. But I hung out with Dave Nevela a good bit because he was like the GM that got me in. He was my GM when I was a guide. Him and Lady DeGarmo, yeah. Which when I met Lady DeGarmo in real life and had to reconcile
that.
the high elf woman with the actual DeGarmo, it was a bit jarring.
It was the complete opposite of expect.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think I'm sure Dave was probably mentioning stuff about that during that period.
Yeah, because I think Dave would have probably been very involved. He probably was directing that from the third party. I remember having issues with that third party. So if anyone has like an original EQ disc, what you could do if you wanted to see the textures, right? So run the launcher, and then after it launches EQ, drop in like the Kinos files, right? I think they're still called the S3Ds. I don't think they've been revamped, but it shouldn't override it once it's finished patching. And you could probably go in and see what the old zones look like. I mean, they were so pixelated, and the texture, like, what's the word I'm like thinking? Just repeating texture pattern was so bad.
Oh yeah. What is the term for that?
Need an artist to tell it. I don't know, just repeating textures. I have no idea. But yeah, it's horrible. I mean, it looks horrible now if you look at it, but back then you didn't care, right? So I mean, you're going from text to 3D. Everything's amazing.
Oh, it doesn't look that horrible.
No, I don't. I think it's fine. The visualizations in the game just add to the game. Like, the game is still the content, the community, especially from an EverQuest standpoint. Without the community or the social aspects, that the game kind of probably falls apart pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, and I do recognize a certain amount of it is just nostalgia, but
yeah.
All right, so I'm digging around in Discord, and I see they've got an H264 hardware acceleration. Hardware acceleration uses your GPU for efficient video encoding if available. But do you think we're running into, like if I utilize that, will it improve the hitching in Discord.
I wish I could pull my video, my Discord video outside of Discord, but I think I have to keep it. It keeps wanting to cover my chat. Actually, let me step away for a second. I like 6 cup of coffee, and this is running through me very quickly. Be right back.
All right. While you're doing that, I'm gonna click this button, and if we need to reconnect, we'll reconnect. And so I'll do that. Disabling Open H264 also disables hardware accelerated video encoding if available. All right. Well, it's been re-enabled. Let's see what happens. And I can check and see what the load is on my system while he's doing that. So Keebs, yeah, it'd be nice if we were sitting in front of each other in game as well. I mean, he's on our server, so I guess in theory that could work. So my GPU is barely being taxed by anything. Need far more patience with a game like EQ compared to new MMOs. Yeah. What Todd was just saying is pretty important, though. I think it's more about just finding those opportunities to engage with the community. If you're pretty open to like free form gameplay and looking stuff up online, then you may not have too hard of a time with it. But yeah. So interesting. It's showing me sending not a ton up, which is odd. But in theory, I can do much more. So I'm just gonna keep humble bragging about my connection speed for a few weeks now that I've had my balls busted so much on the stream about the fact that I was using a little Wi-Fi dongle. And
yeah. Well, so now you should jump in and download a Steam game that's, I know, so like some of the newer games are like 50 gigs.
Yeah.
She'd be like, oh yeah, I just pulled that thing down in a minute. I'm good.
Yeah. No, it'd be a lot better than what I was doing prior to this. So no, I clicked the thing. We'll see if that has any effect on this current call, but I clicked a thing.
So Vulork asked about the old zones on just TLP servers. So I think I answered this question. We touched it a little bit last week also. After Alcabor shut down, right? So we still had like, it was like pretty classic, right? There was no revamped original zones. And that was, it was briefly considered, I think, by the team. The issue, obviously, is that the format of the content's changed. So, we could just say, oh, well, we'll just use the zones. But what that would mean is that in the revamped zones, the content just wouldn't work. The file formats for the exported data, that the schema that we use would have been probably different, significantly so. And you definitely don't want to go back and say, oh, well, we're going to make, Alcabor the new TLP server as is. It just wouldn't work. The APIs to our the backend platform for Daybreak would have just not worked. It would have only been able to support like 2,000 players. That's it. There was no pick zone, no instancing, nothing that we kind of just granted with the TLP servers that all of them work the way they do. And it would have been, it would have been a lot of work to get the code base that, to a point where you could use. Probably just not a good return on investment for that.
Yeah. I'm continuing to twiddle with things back here. I'm not Twitch. Thank you for the follow. Sorry you didn't get the cool follow alert splash thing when it happened. I'm gonna dig into that now and see why that's not working.
Well, I mean, Villar, I mean, it's doable. It's more if you really wanted to do it. Like, you know, if 10 years down the road, someone's like, hey, for EverQuest 30th anniversary, we're going to bring back the true classic, like everything, right? The experience from day one where, you know, you got hell levels, you got, you know, it takes 2 hours to level from 5 to 6 type thing. If they wanted to do that, they could. It wouldn't, I don't know that it'd be more of like a historical experience versus a, you know, way to make experience. It'd be someone's pet project. It wouldn't be like by the full dev team. All right. So before we, like, I noticed Ethan, not sure really how to pronounce. You kind of jumped into Vanguard there. Let me. I didn't want to answer one more question about EverQuest. Dev asked about horses. I like to refer to my daily as working on horse shit. Yeah, that was a compromise to basically let old models work with the horses in that, because, you know, Luckland was a hog in terms of computer reading. Like, those models were pretty brutal. Me and Sean joked about the 4K pillow texture in Charbal. Like, and if you looked at it, you would drop to like 2 frames a second.
Yeah.
So
it took like a week to find that thing.
So I mean, it's just, you know, those things where there wasn't a good migration from old tech to new tech with those features. Going back, you know, if we had had the resources and time, I think we could have made something work better. But I even think at that time, remember, guys, we lost our source art for original Q. There was no way to fix bugs in models. Like, it just wasn't doable. We lost a lot of source stuff, or it's also, you know, the tooling that went around that. You know, a lot of that was on individual machines. Right now, it'd probably be more efficient to reverse engineer everything and build tools around that than it would be to try to find the original source and tools. Which maybe, you know, the P99 guys maybe have kind of played with. How did we lose the sources? Oh, keep in mind back, I mean, EverQuest started development in, I think, late 96, early 97. Source control was essentially a filer that everyone had access to, that there was, you know, maybe weekly backups of, or some version, you know, of. There was no source control in that sense. There was no revision history. The revision history was just whatever you had on your machine. Probably back then, a lot of people, what they did was just made a copy of what they were working on before they started working on it, and that was their backup. And remember, the company transitioned from stuff that was being done at 99 Studios, so they had their own hardware and probably network resources, and then it went to Variant. which became, own IT infrastructure. And then it went to Sony Online Entertainment, and all the stuff is being transferred along that way. And there was also no protection on the filer. Like anyone who had access to the filer had permission to delete stuff for the most part, so there could have been some accidental deleting old files. Like people could have been like, oh, hey, we need to free up some space, and these files are from super old, and it looks like we have new files, and then accidentally delete, like, I don't know, animation definitions or something like that, not really realizing those files were actually useful. Yeah, it's pretty, like, even just to kind of reconstruct Alcabor was the first thing I did was into source control. My first step. All of that version of code, all the design data, everything. I'm like, the only way I can work on this is if everything's, in source control. But we don't have the design data in the database. We just file system, but we could import it into the database. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. See what was. Yeah, I'm gonna try to some of EQ Mill's questions since he's in. Accidentally pushing the EQ game map file to the patchers. Yeah, that was just an accident, not intentional. That was not a disgruntled employee. We were probably just going through the process of updating our deployment process, and someone, well, actually, we deployed something to production was copying files that were built on an individual person's machine to a folder, and then that folder was essentially copied to production. So what happened was a newer type person was doing it, and then they accidentally copied the file instead of just grabbing, the EQGame.exe and drop. I think that only happened on test server, but it was enough. I mean, once one person downloads it and then knows what that file is, then that's out of the bag at that point. And yeah, discussed, but wasn't much you can do at that point, right? We were able to like delete it off of just through the patcher, but it was too late at that point.
And I'm not Twitch asked, were you on the project from the get-go?
Oh, Sean, your audio just dropped.
Completely?
Oh, there you're back.
Okay.
What was the question?
The question was from I'm not Twitch. Were you on the project from the get-go? I can just call you not? All right.
Was I on the project from the get-go? Oh, sorry. I didn't understand what the question was. No, I didn't actually get to be on the development team after launch. So I moved out to San Diego August of '99. The game had already been out for like 6 months. But I was a guide and a GM, or a guide before that. So I was a guide in Phase 4 beta, and then like 6 months, and then went to San Diego. Became a GM there for a few months, became a developer. I think it actually officially was no longer an hourly employee on March of 2000. That's when I was actually, one person we forget to keep calling out here is Andy Seitz. I don't remember if he had a GM name, but he was the producer or assistant producer at that point. And a lot of my career is kind of, he for me from the side. And I think he did that for quite a few people initially. So in addition to, Brad and Roger Uzin and other people, like, they're the ones, that group was the one that allowed me to continue my career in the game industry.
Yeah, it's crazy because his name pops up in that article that was being shared around about the origins of Variant. And when I saw it, I was kind of like, really? Andy was around back then? Because for some reason, I felt like I only got to know him when he was already on like EQ2.
Yeah, I think it's and I apologize for my keyboard here.
Hey, Bunny.
Yeah, he's in. I'm pretty sure he's in the original credits. Yeah, he's an assistant producer in the original EverQuest credits. So it's funny because I first started as a GM. I don't remember. I didn't really work with him that much, right? I mean, he was a producer, producing and probably dealing with the crap related to physical copies getting created, and I mean, it was probably just pure chaos at that point from their standpoint. And GM and as an early dev, our focus was just keeping that game functional, so we probably didn't have a lot of overlap. I don't think until like Kunark development, where yeah.
So Ethan wants you to stop answering
Yeah,
EQ questions and go to Vanguard. Hey, Bunny, and let's see. You're not getting away from EQ. Wait a second. You just said get away from EQ, and now you're bringing up the EQ topic, Ethan. I met you in the hallway the day I interviewed for QA with Jose. I worked with you a ton in Catalyst doing bugs during Kunark beta on test in my character as a player.
Nice. Yeah, Kunark development was. I mean, we had the test server players in general were amazing when we were doing some of that initial testing. I mean, they got abused, but it was great to work with them and kind of help debug all that content. Like, we turn them less loose on the quest chain or whatever, and be like, come back to me tomorrow with your feedback. hopefully they were able to complete the content. That was always the first goal, and then they could tell us whether or not it was too easy or too hard. A lot of times it did not work the first time. We were not good about. Well, at least I'll speak for myself. I won't necessarily else in the bus, but when engineers create content, there's a very, very small chance they actually ran through it fully. Okay, so the Vanguard question. Let me scroll up for that. Is my thought on a scale of 1 to 10 on whether Vanguard will come back. Why? I actually am curious as to why you're asking this. Do you know something that I don't know? I know you didn't want to share your real name, but now I'm kind of racking my head. So, do I think Vanguard? I secretly wish to some extent it would, but the chances are like on a scale of 1 to 10, probably 2. So, it's like 1 in a million. So there's still a chance, not really. The issue with IP, yeah, that's always a big one with me. From if like here's my ideal scenario, and I think Sean touched on this briefly. Tomorrow, if I had enough resources and I didn't need my current job, I would start a company and then approach every out there that's just sitting on some type of IP and basically try to work out a scenario to bring that product back. The intent isn't for it to make money. The intent is to kind of keep, I mean, for all intents and purposes, just think of it a museum for online games. Wouldn't it be just freaking awesome if you played a game, let's just say Meridian 59, right? So maybe you played it and you were just like, oh my god, that was the most awesome game ever. And there was a way, you could fix your, somehow remember your account. You probably went to an AOL address like that. That'd be awesome. I would probably still jump into, my Star Wars Galaxies character, or my, I'm going to bring up FreeRealms or Vanguard, or even what other games have been down that were the game successful on their own, but from a business, they didn't make sense, right? So I'd love to get a hold of the code, license to use the IP freely, update the back end aspects of it to talk to a central platform that's not tied to the company itself, and get it cloud ready. I think a lot of these games could probably run with donations.
Yeah, and I think is the echo on my end or yours now? Do you have?
I don't
Did
have
you change
mine.
Let me see. How about now? All right. No. Anyway, the thought I had was, one, it'd be nice to, as Bunny said, it'd be nice to basically have that archive as you're describing, right? Like preserve them for history.
Yeah.
I do think that for me personally, and this is just something that's really come up more as we've been doing this stream, if I had the kind of money that it would take to want to do something crazy like make an MMO at some point in the future, I would. I do like the EQ IP a lot, and I think it's just because it's got a place in my heart, and I could see making new products in the future, but I would want to keep those old ones as well.
Yeah, so it's weird. Like, I really don't have a strong incentive to create a new MMO. Like, I haven't really. That isn't my thing. Like, but I'd love to work on someone else's new MMO. Like, if I know he's always got his things going on, but other people have their ideas, and I'm like, and they pitch him, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right? I'd totally love to work. I don't really have anything in my own mind that I would be like an amazing universe. I mean, I'm more sci-fi than I am fantasy when it comes to online worlds, even though I mostly play fantasy right now. Like, what's the? Anyways, so the idea of what did someone call it? Archivalism.
I think it's archivization.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of private servers. The issue becomes still having some type of you know, a control, but some type of expectation that the work will be in its original format, I guess. I think, I mean, honestly, if it's going to happen, what I think really needs to happen is someone with lots of, you know, some type of billionaire person gets wind of the idea, supports, believes in it, and then just approaches all the companies that are sitting IPs and just buys them out for, you know, whatever. I don't have that type of money laying around.
So
And
there was a company that was doing that a while back. They were doing it as games were fading. They collected a bunch of them. I forgot the producer who I watched. It was a European company start buying them up, and they were actually making some decent cash. There was a reference earlier to RuneScape about it not necessarily making a huge amount of money. I could have sworn the last 2 or 3 years have been the most revenue generating years of RuneScape's history. I've got to find the article again, but they've actually been making a shitload of money, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
when we were doing our tech test, RuneScape popped up on my Twitch stream as a Prime reward, or I had a Prime loot box from RuneScape. What? I mean, that's a good example of a product adapting to the current market. EQ could probably do more of that, right? They could definitely jump on all these newer to get exposed out there. I think line on. I'm actually not sure what they're doing right now from a social spend. I think it's still just meant to be like a whole organic thing, but you know, Twitch Prime, some other type of sponsorships could go a long way to adding yet more players. I don't think there's any issues with the company right now. I think they're doing fine. It's just whether they could, you know, generate enough revenue to possibly expand or create a new product from that.
Yeah, so in 2017, and I know that's a few years back now, I'll find a more recent article. 2017, they're making, Jagex was making 50% profit on 84.9 million pounds in revenue.
A year?
A year.
That is insane.
Yes. No, they've grown. They've, because I know some people that have been working to help them scale certain things, but so I can't speak 100%. I just remember seeing some of these articles. Let's see, 2018 it said a record-breaking year for Jagex with revenues of 92.8 million pounds. And that was 2018. That's a grip of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, the way, like I said, the way I envision this, like, we could use Vanguard as an example, right? You know, access to the code and the original resource. I think I was joking. I was texting to Sean a while back about, like, a couple weeks ago, about probably take a month or two to get everything up and running, at least internally, and then a month or two to get a new platform created on the back end, a month or two to make it cloud ready. So you're looking at like 6 months of partial, you know, development time to get everything back to working. You know, maybe that's a little bit optimistic. You know, when there's enough passion put into something, I think, you know, you can do it. You know, it's all about extra hours at that point for your pet project. You know, FreeRealms would be a great target. FreeRealms is another one of those products that came out before its time. Idea of a kid's back in 2007. I mean, I know there was Club Penguin and other stuff, but today it makes more sense.
Funny said there's 121,000 players concurrent on old school RuneScape right now. Yeah. And 6 months ago you saw 70K. Well, it's weird too because I also think that there's something to be said for what hasn't happened over the last 20 years. Like, I mean, when I look back over the MMOs, and this isn't to say that they're not great MMOs out there. I think they're different MMOs for different folks. If you want to play ESO, great. If you want WoW, you know, Albion, whatever the thing is. But like coming back into EQ, and again, I don't know how much of this is just nostalgia, but like coming back into EQ, to me, this is. I mean, I'm okay with this as like my RPG at the moment. Like, even though I'm mainly just going around camping some shit, but like the core loop to me is not bad. I'm not like powering through a horrible core loop in order to hang out with people at the moment. Like I log in and play and grab groups and shit when I'm not streaming just because I find it enjoyable.
Yeah, the grouping mechanic in EverQuest is it's still enjoyable. Like I still pop into Unrest. You know, I get a group pretty much instantly. And we do actually have time to chat, and people are and everyone seems to be really helpful. Like I didn't know that there's potions now that are craftable that give clarity, right, or some type of boosted mana. And every time I do my one I buy from the marketplace for whatever it is, 100 credits that last hours. But every time I sit down, someone pops one in my chat, on my channel goes here, and I'm like, oh, I already have one. They're like, dude, stacks. And I'm like, all right, thanks. And they hand me a stack of 5. Now, granted, everyone gets benefit from the fact that I don't run out of mana and I can heal you pretty much indefinitely. But I never really experienced that in other games that are much more. I don't want to bring up WoW specifically because I haven't really played it in quite a long time. But back then, it was just how quickly can you get through the content to get to the heroic instances or rating. Or in EverQuest, well, with at least the TLP servers, since they're time locked, you have 3 months to play the game at whatever speed you want to. Like if you wanna race to 50 and get to the plains, that's cool. Then you can just roll another character and repeat that process. I'm 23 and I log in like 2 or 3 times a week, and every time I do, I get a couple levels. So I'll get before the expansions hit.
Yeah. It's funny, as you're saying that, somebody in OOC said, any newbie want a Dwarven Ringmail tunic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have actually from Unrest, I'm collecting a small plate set, and then I have the mantle tunic. I have the hat and some other stuff, and I'm waiting for Steve Clover to ping me. Be like, hey dude, I logged in. I'm like, oh, I got some gear for you. Toss you some fine steel weapons, bronze. Actually, I don't know his favorite classes. I don't remember what his classes were when he was a developer.
Yeah, and let me know if he winds up picking a small race. I've got some stuff in the bank as well. Vulorg said any company that decides to make an MMO going forward, they should definitely preserve their game prior to major content cycles. Yeah, it's an interesting thought to like really make it easy to. That's a great point. Like basically have those easy to sort of fall back and re-trigger TLPs and stuff like that, because now we know that it's going to be in demand.
Yeah. So I suspect when Blizzard did this with WoW Classic, sorry, I don't know if the really behind, but with WoW Classic, I'm pretty sure they could just, if they were using Perforce or whatever for their source control, I'm sure they could essentially just sync back to a place in time. the problem, like I said, is not so much the content as it is the back end infrastructure, and then making sure that it can run on whatever modern infrastructure they have today, right? So we wouldn't want to go through the, like I mentioned with Alcabor, it's like, yeah, I'm sure they could turn the server back on, but it would just fall over horribly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like having the content available. I'm just trying to think of what things might be done differently moving forward to ensure that certain quality of life improvements are always there in the underlying platform, but then the content's always sort of in the proper stratification to be re-released, so that even if you do something that's like, or especially if you do something that's a quality of life improvement that even when we go all the way back to classic, we want to then preserve, like how that would be best structured.
Yeah, but it's not that you can't do it, it's just whether or not it's going to be successful from a business standpoint, right? So having Alcabor run just for, a casual session, or just have it be out there for people of an archival back in time thing, that's fine. But if you actually wanted to support, 50,000 players or 10,000 players, or you wanted to launch on Steam, or, with Discord's version or whatever, like that's where the whole process quickly breaks down. Not Alcabor was version of EverQuest was stuck in time around Planes of Power. So if it still existed, like from a Daybreak standpoint, it would be truer to classic EQ than the current time lock progression servers, because it wouldn't have any of those nice fixes for playability.
Todd, you said your Twitch is feeling pretty behind.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was about to say you should be able to refresh and see if that
Let me,
works.
let me, let me try that and see if it.
You'll lose chat, but chat will come back.
Right. Really have your with your Discord video, better syncing between you and us having a conversation, so I can tell like when you want to say something.
Yeah. It's funny. Jasmine was like, "What's going on?" He's talking, and there's more talking. I was like, "He's got a list of questions. It's not just like one," because she can hear a little bit through the headphones. And I was like, "Yeah, he's got a list of questions that he's going through. It's not a speech that he prepared."
Yeah. So since we're still like of Alcabor a bit, the PC client did see an influx of users. I thought it was great initially. The issue was just really conflict between it being like a Mac exclusive product or access for the most part, and people were kind of to when the PC client came out, it kind of opened up the door for like show EQ and everything else from back in the day working again. Say that the people on the Mac server didn't have some capability to do that. It was just, it wasn't as publicly seen. So a bit of clash of the communities. And what actually ended up killing Alcabor's server was twofold. Daybreak, or sorry, SOE at the time decided to make a move to free to play for every future title, right? So FreeRealms and CloneWars had already come out to play, and so the idea was to move existing to the free to play platform. So Alcabor was still subscription based, just like EverQuest was, and I think back still had like 1,200 subscribers to the Alcabor server. And so when that revenue disappeared, because there was no marketplace in the Alcabor server, there was no way to generate additional revenue. Everyone just stopped being charged for the Alcabor server. So there's no. And then I think sometime shortly after that is when the client came out, and then a lot more people joined the server. There was a lot more server conflict from the there was a lot more people petitioning. There was a lot more CS complaints. And I actually tried to let the server know that, at the time, I think every time you generate a customer service call, that's costing SOE money, and there's no way to recover that. Like, there's no, and I don't want to say the server dug its own grave, but kind of what happened, right? They became too costly to operate because of the additional overhead from customer service stuff. And also the devs were tired of, I don't blame them. They really had no influence over the server, no way to address issues. So everything kind of had to go through me because the development team was focused on the current EverQuest expansion was. They didn't want to think about this. So it just kind of became a little bit of a liability for the company in that sense. And that got shut down. And that actually kind of brings up, with the archivism scenario, one of the things I think you would have to, Sean, you can obviously offer some feedback into this, but you kind of have to decide, how you're going to deal with those issues. I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, well, if something's broken, you're just kind of shit out of luck. But really, that's not experience for the user. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have, if we use, Daybreak as an example, we bring back Vanguard, right? You don't want them to have that associated with them at that point. There's still a lot of branding in all these titles that, reference the original company. Like you have to kind of work out to rebrand it probably to make sure there's no, what happens to all those, any residual web pages, YouTube videos, everything referencing that title back to the original parent company. They're going to have some unintentional costs associated with just kind of redirecting that back to whatever new company is using the IP at that point.
Yeah. So the way I would see it is, if it's truly just being preserved, if it's really just a matter of keeping it around, then I would, if it was me and I didn't want to go the more sort of service focused way, I would set it up where it was basically just a Tyler, thank you for the subscription. It's good to see that the alert actually worked. I'm back here trying to fix things behind the scenes while Todd's talking. I'm not distracted. Well, I'm also feigning death, but yeah. So I think doing something like more of a focus, like P99 thing, where it's like, hey guys, we let the community take over certain aspects of this, and it's just made very clear. And then there's a period where as much of that material is gathered up. My assumption is that when you're working through the licensing or whatever, the purchase of it, that the companies know that, hey, if there's sort of lingering reference to a former company or a company that is still around but no longer owns it, those things can be submitted. We'll address it or whatever. But what I was thinking was similar to this company that I saw a few years back. Uh, m- my thought would be for those titles to be brought in, and there would be an actual business model there, right? And the business model would account for a certain amount of support, and that support might then work with a certain amount of volunteer community support. But I would structure the entire business model around that concept. And the benefit then is similar to what this one company was doing, which is they had a couple titles, like they bought APB, so I should be able to find the company by that. So they bought APB. Well, like one of the things that I could have sworn they got out of APB was, one, they got to keep it, they got to pull those customers in. There's certain customer awareness that brings them into their bigger portfolio of games. That's cool. But like APB had a really complex digital audio workstation in it. Like you can make crazy music in it. And so they're like, cool. So we bought that tech basically, and we're looking at potentially using that in some other product or game. So it would be kind of like one of my previous companies put things into what was kind of like the kind of maintenance mode, but they had a pool of games that were all in there, and then they shared resources across those games. They had customer service just like the other games, etc. But it was always for the pool. So I think there's some ways to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's definitely a model you can choose to go down. Like I said, the titles that have been shut down. So there's like the difference between titles that have already been shut down and titles that companies are looking to not sunset, but also. And really, what it is that at some point, resource perspective, the developer is just not equipped to deal with a live past a certain point. Now, different story and SOE because that's how they were created, is to manage live, for the most part, manage live titles. But yeah, and obviously bringing back a resurrecting a title, you have a little bit longer term to get things brought into your platform, adapted and running and stuff like that. But from an existing product standpoint, that gets a little hairy because you have only so much time to bring it over and get it working before you start causing customer pain. Let's see here. And that's the thing, right? So if you talk to any of the original EverQuest developers, they kind of are all talking about the same thing I am. They would, if there was some way to, keep these games alive. But sometimes companies just like to have IPs. They like to say they own this. They like to say like this is part of their portfolio. They're not, into the whole charity business of giving away those. And by the time they realize that the IP is not really worth it to them, it's probably too late.
Yeah. Well, if the IP's got no value, it doesn't cost them anything to sit on it. If the IP
Right.
does have value, cool, then give me some money, right? And so it makes sense to sit on it.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because you would think that the Vanguard one, maybe there's some value if it was being shopped around, so more people knew about it. Maybe one of the issues is that Daybreak really doesn't know much about the in general, because by the time Daybreak was formed, most of the original people who worked on Vanguard had already left the company, or there's very few people left. Right, I was there. There might have been a few other people, but in general, Daybreak isn't really familiar with what the game is, what he stands for.
And to me, that seems weird. Like that. To me, that seems like it's got to be. I'm not trying to say you're wrong, but I just can't imagine how they wouldn't.
Well,
You know what I mean?
sorry, you broke up there that last.
Saying it seems weird that they wouldn't have some concept of it. Not to say that you're wrong. I just I would find it weird.
Yeah.
And then after this, I will respond to chat really quick. Bunny, you've mentioned Hellgate London a couple times, and since I did play that and I was pretty jazzed on it, I'm gonna have to look up that scenario. But you said the devs had to give up the IP to the bank that they took loans from. The bank eventually tried to bring back Hellgate, and it wasn't profitable, so it got shut down again. And they sold it off to someone else. And so this kind of tying it back to the Daybreak thing, it's like, but okay, so assume whoever they sold it off to's got to have some realization of the history of it. And like Daybreak, I assume has some understanding of the history of EQ.
EQ for sure. It's more thinking around Vanguard.
Oh, that's where I got confused because I was like, oh, that'd be weird. Now, Vanguard, I guess I could see.
Keep in mind, we did try to bring Vanguard back once, right? So I was the technical director for that. So kind of jumping to my work history. So I was at Sigil, and then SOE came in and helped launch Vanguard, which obviously is amazing because they didn't have to do that. And so I was some of the more senior people left Vanguard at that point during the purchase of the company. Me and a couple of the senior engineers stayed on. Lead programmer, actually just a lead programmer at that point, was on there for a period of time, and then FreeRealms was now in its launch towards launch. Excuse me. So I moved over to FreeRealms. FreeRealms launched. Then I moved over to CloneWars. CloneWars launched, and then there was a discussion about relaunching Vanguard a second time into the redo a marketplace, all free to play, fix the game type thing. So again, this is actually I think Candy Sites, and then was involved in this. And we started the process, built a small development. And even Brad involved a little bit for that. And we launched Vanguard. One of the first things we did was rebuild all the back-end tech for it to work with all of our new modern systems. So it was actually, I think, what year was this? 2012? Someone when the Vanguard relaunched. Now it relaunched it on Steam. That was maybe that was the other time. But anyways, there was a brief revitalization in Vanguard, and from a monetization standpoint, it did okay. Like barely became even. Like I think it was like barely profitable, if it maybe not even profitable. And then like I could just see the daily revenue just continue to drop. And then we're back to the state again where it's not profitable to run. So I was moved to I think that's when I started working on, what was it? Probably at that time. And then I heard like, oh yeah, we're going to shut down Vanguard when I was like on Z1 development. I'm like, I can't really do to save it at that point. Michelle, how's it going?
Hey, Michelle.
So yeah, anyways, I mean, Vanguard's always held a special spot in my heart outside of EverQuest, mainly because when I was a developer on that product, like every day I was still finding stuff I've never seen in the world when I was a developer. Like that's how crazy the world was. place, and then see all the attention to detail to some of the things, which is insane. And I kind of miss that.
How much of running a game is just keeping it on, not including dev or CS support?
I mean, that's essentially keeping it on is a little bit probably, a simplistic view of it. You're going to run it in the cloud, you kind of have to, right? You don't want to rent rack space from someone. So you have to kind of like monitor that, set up some type of monitoring. You have to monitor costs, and then just be, available for any type of issue. You don't want to let the servers go offline for too long of a time if you actually have people playing it. But yeah, the whole idea is that it would only be a few $1,000s a year run. That's the target goal. But
Right.
and you actually see what happens when you get players on there. Remember, one of the features of Vanguard was that it only spun up the zones that people were actually in or adjacent to. So it only 10 people running in opposite directions, or even just having 50 people online could trigger a full world start, which then could start consuming hardware. So you have to kind of balance all that.
Yeah, I mean, there are those aspects of it. There's the challenge with marketing. I mean, because as Zen just pointed out, marketing is expensive. Marketing is expensive, and more, trying to market PC-based games that aren't big titles, that don't allow for like really easy PR opportunities. It's gotten interesting. Like a lot of when I think of marketing these days, I think of the sophistication when it comes to user acquisition for mobile. And there's so much involved there now, and it's such an interesting and complex beast. When I think of then marketing outside of mobile, it's kind of weird. It's like, what are your marketing channels really? And because the last company I was at was running into that bit as well. It's like, it's one thing to do app store optimization and see the effects there and be able to track affiliates and know what the performance is like, but web based, like doing SEO and trying to get yeah, it's almost like it feels like it's been disappearing in favor of mobile. And so if you're not on the mobile platform, then how do you market the product? And if you are marketing the product on mobile, but it's a PC game, then how are you getting people to do the platform jump? Is this sort of the mentality? Though I do think it's feasible. Yeah, it's just, and yeah, it's expensive. User acquisition is expensive, very expensive. But that's why I also think the thing with more people streaming, I mean, when you see like playing EverQuest, that's insane marketing, right? Like I think the more you start to like see more and more people streaming, more and more you're building up these small communities or micro communities and building out these niches, then I think we'll see a new opportunity for marketing that we haven't had for games like EverQuest or other games in quite a while. Could crowdfunding work for a game like EverQuest to get it remastered?
I don't think Daybreak would ever that route. But I mean, that's how I envisioned, like, one of the other titles. If we were going to look at FreeRealms or Vanguard, that's one of the routes I think could take.
Yeah, and like, is there a lot of crowdfunding still going on? Like, I felt like that sort of popped up and then it.
I mean, I wouldn't imagine for a new. Well, didn't Pantheon do that? Didn't they do crowdfunding initially, or was that's his original game that he was starting to work on? Could have swore they did.
Yeah, I just looked at it. They have like the founders packs and stuff like that up, right?
Yeah, I'm not a Star Citizen, so no clue how they were able to generate $150 million crowdfunded. Really?
Yeah, it's been an insane amount.
Jeez, I'm just not with that game. Maybe I should check it out. It's crazy.
I can save you the hassle of checking it out. They have a ton of money, or had a ton of money, but like the actual core experience is I played a few weeks ago, and it still feels like there's not really much there. Hey Zaid. Like Star Citizen's interesting in that it feels like you're playing a game engine, and so you get a little taste of the different things it can do. But I was shocked that like the sort of, and again, I'm not trying to shit on anybody or whatever, but I was just shocked that there wasn't much in terms of variety. The stuff just didn't work, and it was kind of, when I say it didn't work, it was like when you go through one of your starting apartment areas where you're like then have to run out to your ship and all this stuff. You have like two or three of the same character model positioned all over the place, and they're like standing on benches, and they're just kind of like plopped in, and I'm like, after all this time, you couldn't find like a dude like me in CS go to run around and make this look appealing, right? Like, how hard is that? Like, so, and then a lot of the stuff is interesting. Like, it's badass to run around in someone's ship while they're flying it, and then hop in a turret and all this other stuff. But it's so like it's as buggy as you would expect. Like, all of a sudden I fall into a bunk bed and I'm stuck in a bunk bed, and then I can see space blazing by, and then I camp out, and then I come back in, and I can't rejoin the dude, and the mission's now broken. I was on a great space mission where I like got out of my ship and went flying through space into a busted space station, crashed, no longer had the mission available to me. It's just like, guys, this is shit that it's not like the crazy technical problem you're dealing with. This is foundational MMO stuff that hasn't been fixed in 6 years.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned with things like that because that money's not going to the product. It's being burnt somewhere else.
Well, and I don't know if they're still this big, but at one point when I looked, and I was like, I think they had like 5 or 7 studios distributed through America and the world. That's that's a hell of a burn rate.
Yeah.
So again, no offense, guys. If somebody at Star Citizen wants to pop on and explain to us, that would be cool. But that's just, as a player, it's what I feel like I'm seeing. Yeah. So it's a decent burn rate at 10 years.
I'm looking at just some more of the questions that have popped up. Secrets, we just joined Twitch chat, but we kind of talked about the fear of the plane optimization. Kind of apologize for that, at least from the Planet Sky perspective. But I didn't this in Planet Fear. Let's see.
If Pantheon does not go to market, crowdfunding for MMOs will be dead forever. One, I hope they go to market. Two, I don't know that I agree with that. There just needs to be a new thing to get people hyped. I have wondered for a while if there's not some value in like a certain degree of like transparency with regards to um, if something's crowdfunded, there being like an auditor, like a team of people that can kind of go in and look at processes and the way something's moving forward. Like if I owned Kickstarter for games, I would also have a group of basically a group of consultants that would then go in and give each game a rating. This is a complete bullshit idea, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I've done Kickstarters that have, at this point, I mean, I did a Kickstarter when I was back at SOE. So it's been 6 years, and I've never gotten thing, even though I still get the token yearly email. Oh, we're still working on it. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm never going to see that. I don't know that it'll necessarily be the downfall of like crowdfunding for MMOs. You just like everything is, it's easily forgotten, like that someone took advantage of a system or whatever, and there's always new money coming into the market. So someone will come in and be like, yeah, I'll give you $100 million to do something.
Well,
yeah, crowdfunding tech is kind of weird. Stuff these days can be open sourced. So what's my favorite expansion app? Well, from a EQ player perspective, I never made it past gates. I never did any of the hard content. So, you know, I mean, my options are limited, right? it's gonna be Legacy Rikisha, Eldon, or Gates. I think I probably and I didn't really play much in Legacy Rikisha. I didn't go back into the new zones until long after the expansion. It's probably just gonna be because of the tech behind it, like the instancing, the dungeon finder, the other stuff that we worked on, the augments. Was it augments? Yeah. Other stuff was kind of cool. My favorite class is definitely the shaman. I've played Brian since day one, so I've always kind of been Hollis is my city. I've worked on a lot in their post launch. Added some content in there. So finding Karg has always been like that thing you want to do as a newbie, Karg Ice Bear. You know, that whole area was scary as a new player. You stroll out into Everfrost and you come out of the mountains and you're like, and you see that valley and you're like, that's the valley I don't cross until I'm ready, because everything in front of that is doable. Lower, level 6, level 7, and then once you go past that, now you're talking about Icebone skeletons and Orc Mountaineers and whatever there it's gonna be fully sowed and just whack you in like 2 seconds. And not to mention, you knew there was ice giants out there because someone probably trained them to the guards at one point in your. So that area has always been like my special area in EverQuest. Yeah, getting lost in the mountains is one of those things where you just, like we were talking about how we learned to drive, or you were talking about, I think, Greg, with this one, like your perception on your situational awareness is just so intense in EverQuest. You just have to know where everything is, where everything spawns, where everything roams, all the mazes. Like you just have to know where. You've learned how far away mobs aggro. Like you've memorized that, and you're able to run through zones without even and not aggro anything. So it's interesting that that's something we take away from it.
Every starting zone had such a unique feel, Tyler said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Did all 5? Who's the guy talking? Love his box collection.
Yeah. So these are.
He's a super fan.
Well, so when I was a developer, and Sean probably remembers this back in the day, you know, we actually marketing would give us these boxes to put on our cube walls, like kind of cross up there. And so this was kind of like how we would decorate our area. So this is like a thick marketing box that you would normally see on an end caps from like GameStop or something like that. So they'd always do a ton of them off into our cube area. So I have a stack of them in my office closet over there with all my other EQ crap. I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to old school games. I have all the boxes for all my all the discs, everything. I probably have another 10,000 to 20,000 station cash just sitting in my closet over there, just because I've never opened my boxes for like all the stuff that's been given away since I've been at Daybreak. It all comes with the 1 month subscription or like, you know, a $500 station cash card. I've never done any of those. Probably just all.
Teardall, to more politely actually answer your question, didn't mean to be a smart ass. Well, I did, but not in a bad way. And the bot's not working. Like basically, this is Todd, and Todd was one of the first programmers I had the pleasure of meeting when I arrived at Barrett Sony back in the day and sort of worked my way up. And then Todd is a designer and programmer who you spent, what, 19 years?
Yeah, 19 years. Yeah, so, well, actually, I guess it would be closer to 20, right? So August of 1999 to June of 2019.
Yeah. Yep. And so I would do the little VOD command and say that you could check out his first appearance here as a guest, but I'll have to actually manually paste in the link to the highlights. I've got a collection of highlights. At this point, it's like 11 hours or something of people talking, so it's adding up pretty quickly. I'll get the bot fixed again. I'm just happy that the stream's actually running again after last week and this weekend sort of issues. But yeah, so you can check out Todd on the VOD. I would give you our Discord info, but yeah, you know, the bot's broken. So Zaid has a kind of an off the wall question.
So I guess the answer is they probably don't, right? In the context of like the game as it is. If you do get Bill on here, he'll go over some of the intent around the lore, like how, you know, cities were supposed to know about things. You know, even in Vanguard, the idea of, you know, if you do something in a faraway dungeon that did have some impact on, you know, you were supposed to be recognized for that more than just a faction bump or whatever. And then obviously the people of that continent should be fully aware of where the dragons live. That's kind of an important thing, even though they really don't talk about it. Yeah, I mean that's a fair point, Bunny. Like dragons don't really go out and do stuff. They just kind of, I mean, at least in the EverQuest lore, the idea was they kind of just were shiny stuff.
Hey, Retro. Welcome back. They would know if they saw the yellow text announcement. Yeah, they keep just how unobservant. On the bill front, yeah, thanks, man. Your Facebook share was helpful. So I've chatted with Bill. It's just a matter of I just sent him a message today. Actually, today was Sunday, so I went back through and poked everybody. So I poked Tony again, poked Bill again, and half a dozen other folks. I'm hoping some folks get back to me on that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get to jump in game. I have to toss them an all access pass if I have one laying around somewhere, so we can at least jump in.
Yeah, secrets. I think it's gonna be a very interesting chat, and probably one where if Bill comes on and has a good time, we're gonna need him to come back a couple times, at least.
Yeah, for sure. You guys got any hard questions? It's kind of chill today.
Yeah, well, today's also the secret, like the secret sneak Todd in stream.
Yeah.
Bill Trost, Ileana, Michelle. I've got to reach out to Coil. He's on my list. I can't remember. I've got to check my spreadsheet. I have a big spreadsheet now of like everybody, whether or not I've pinged them, where I pinged them, whether or not I got a response, when I need to check back with them.
The Luckland soundtrack. John, do you remember what happened with that?
No, because honestly, Rashir is on the list. Yep, Ethan. The soundtrack. Yeah, that's so weird because that was still during my coming onto the team as officially a designer sort of phase. So a lot of that, I've got to wonder if it just got. It couldn't have just gotten lost in the shuffle.
No, I seem to remember that it was too big to fit on the disc or discs.
Maybe
plural.
that was it.
And I seem to remember it was going to be, and the whole intent obviously was to offer some type of digital download later on. But you know, yeah, you guys have to remember we were still pioneering online delivery. At that point, I don't think it was really. I mean, I still have a Luckland box, so that was probably our primary distribution method. So
it wasn't until LOY.
Yeah, so when we had to produce a product for the shelf, there was definitely restrictions you had to follow, right? We couldn't put it on probably DVD at that point, so we had probably a disc limit. There was some other types of issues related to that. The bigger types may have some more knowledge on, but yeah.
And so for Legacy of Akesha, we didn't have the time to put a box on a shelf.
Yeah.
And that was actually kind of controversial with our distributors. And so the jewel case release of LOY was a thing that, if I'm not mistaken, we committed to, hey, we will be putting out a thing that you can sell, but we have to get this out. And that was one where I could have sworn like sales really had to talk to the Best Buys and everybody of the world and let them know that we weren't going to snub them so that we didn't screw up our relationship. But it was kind of a big first for us. And Ethan, I don't know if you heard me, but yeah, Rashir, I've talked to him. He's expressed interest coming in. Believe he's been in the middle of a move. So
Who's
I sent
Rashir?
a follow-up message. For 1 second. Why am dude, I just saw him on a certain thread. Why am I blanking on his real name right now? I feel so horrible. Is it in chat yet? Are you guys beating me? Travis.
Travis. Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah, I was just like, how am I spacing on his name right now? I just saw his name like 15 times over the weekend.
There's an EQ next question. I don't know how much we want to go into that. So I worked on Landmark for a while. It was like 2 years. I did more of the marketplace side, which was tied to like the webpage store where you can buy dirt if you really wanted to. And actually, we did sell dirt, which was insane. I didn't really. I helped very little with like actual the voxel and play stuff. The Landmarks issue, and this kind of leads into EQ next a bit, was just too much new tech at once. That's kind of like how we like to sum it up. It's like if we would have just chewed on the voxel thing instead of the voxel thing plus terrain destruction plus a new NPC AI system plus like all these other systems you just kind of add on, like we would have been able to probably get more done quicker for the tech side and actually got to a point where you could have a product design against. But some of those technical hurdles were never solved in a timely manner.
I know Brian was on the team. Who was the leadership of that team?
That was Dave Georgeson. Yeah. People that were involved in EverQuest on there.
So Georgeson from PlanetSide. Yeah, I thought I saw his name there.
I mean, I didn't think Bill Trost was back for that a little bit. A lot of some of the old school people came back to help out on that. As for EQ Next, I don't have. I left Landmark, and then I was more a technical director for the company as opposed to a specific title at that point. And then obviously Daybreak came around, and I really know, like, I didn't really know much of the EQ Next stuff.
Okay. Michelle said Jeff was the creative director. All right. Yeah, I was. I think that's when I first got to Germany, wasn't it? Wasn't that like 2015, 2016?
Yeah, something like that. There's a question about Luckland models. Oh god, those things are. Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy hired. I don't remember if it was like a friend of the family or whatever. But Sean, do you remember the incident with the Charval female models? Or not Charval, Bashir female models with the jig incident.
You cut out there for a second. Discord. Did you say jiggling?
The jiggly boobs. There's
yeah.
So basically, what happened was that the model would run, and the boobs had they were definitely pretty ridiculous, especially a cat. And after they would have some bounce to them, and then after you stopped running, they just wouldn't stop bouncing.
Now I remember.
So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I remember that bug. I don't like. I'm trying to think of what really happened there. It'd be good to have maybe a couple different points of view, because I know I've noticed that not just with folks here, but just in general, I'm noticing some pretty different recollections of different things.
Hmm.
And so that's one of those things I'm very conscious of. Like my recollection could be completely wrong, and so that's why I preface everything, right? But I could have sworn that one of the challenges was the. It felt like there was almost a redo or just a last minute. Holy shit, we gotta get all this animation done. And I remember the guy that was running around, sort of running the animation. I don't know if he's the head animator, but I don't necessarily want to mention his names. I always avoid names, but I can send it to you on the side. Um, he, like, these guys were honestly doing an insane amount of work and trying to get all this stuff in. And there were technical issues. They were having to go back. Didn't they have like issues with like the rig and the bone count and everything else that then required them to redo and redo?
There was definitely a lot of issues with the redoing aspects. I'm actually looking through the credits. I saw the guy's name.
I know his
Uh,
Runji.
I'm not going to say his name on chat because I don't think he's. I think he some point during before it actually even shipped. Um, and looking through it right now, and I think everything pretty much had to be redone on. Uh, yeah, I think I see it now. I think everything had to pretty much be redone last minute because it just looked horrible. Like I stick up the butt thing is kind of like, yeah, most models run like, I'm like, just look at the female barbarians and their stances. I guess it's male barbarians too. Like everything just is not done. Um, and it's one of those things where I think we even wanted to fix it, right? But we were off to the next expansion, and there was no resources left to fix the issues.
Yeah. Um, and it was, I mean, it was a period where things were coming in so hot. Like I think it's been discussed on a number of the previous ones. It's like somebody like me who is just pulled up from the CS pit and made full time, but was still an apprentice, was handed like a starting city. And I think, a few of us apprenti cobbled that thing together and got it done. Weeks. I can't imagine it was months, but like maybe weeks before launch, a month before launch. Hey, we have 2 weeks, and this epic quest needs to be done. So hop on it. And that was along with all of the other technical stuff. And losing, like you said earlier, losing a week to why does this zone not run, or 2 weeks to why does this zone not run on anybody's machine. Oh, we found the two textures, a doorknob that was like 4K and the underside of a pillow that was like 4K, and thus destroying your machine. So there was stuff like that all over the place.
Yeah, 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 and it has just to do with insane hours and the lack of oversight at all levels, like why that stuff happened, right? I mean, I feel bad for the artist because I think related to the model aspect, I think at the office close to 20 hours a day. Leave at night and you come in the next morning or afternoon, depending on when you actually woke, they were still there, trying to work through the technical issues with the new engine. I mean, I think if we get Roy on here, he'll have some more insight because I think he was doing a lot of the new engine stuff at that point, or he was probably doing most of it with Ryan. So yeah. So I do have Aaron run today, so we're a little
Yeah.
over 2 hours. So I can do a few more minutes, but I do need to kind of drop off, and we can just do a more scheduled one next time.
Yeah. Not a problem. This is way longer than I expected. This was meant to just be a tech check, and it turned into a fun conversation again. Yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock here. So ABQ SC2, thank you for the follow. And thank you earlier. I saw when you came in, you said that we made one of your favorite games, I believe. That's nice of you.
Quick, I'm just looking through questions real quick since people are spamming them. Could they fix the look limit? I think I kind of mentioned that earlier. There's some loss of assets somewhere around there for some of the stuff. They might be able to. I don't know that. I've actually. It's funny because Jen asked me about that just a little over a year ago, right before I left, and I did some archival digging. And I did find some original Lookland assets. I just don't know if they were the right ones, right? So that's always the other issue, is that you may find some source. You just don't know if that's the source that's currently in production or whether it's someone else's source that's even more broken than the current stuff. I never heard they were going to update the models again. That'd have been cool. You need to get someone else on talk chat about that. Those old zones, Nariad D, I think, did have assets. Arena 2 is just a second arena. That was the exact same geometry. It was just renamed so that it could be used for the best of best, or I think is what it was used for. Aviac, the intent was to have, I think, the village in Ocean of Tears to actually be a zone. I don't think there was ever anything created for it, or if it was like super early and looked horrible. Or maybe it was even in, was it South Karana? Maybe it was that one, not the one in OOT. Nectropos, I've heard of that, but I don't think I've ever seen anything for it. A lot of the times the directories were created, but no assets were actually ever put in them, meaning that well, the reason why that happens is the design tool, like you can define a zone, right? I can have a zone called Hobart, and it'll export a folder for Hobart. It gets pulled in, there's a zone definition like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's ever any geometry tied to it.
They made Nectropos in EQ2.
Terror, you're to the mini bosses in Planet Fear, right? From what I understand, is they weren't necessarily supposed to have loot. They were kind of the you must be this high to proceed on this ride type bosses. That's how I kind of perceived them. I might be wrong though. Like if you can deal with them, then you can deal with, or they were pretty much meant to be like you had to go through them before you could get to Kazakh Tool, because otherwise they would just get zone wide aggro and death touch you. Yeah. There's a lot of that in EQ, right? So I mean, even all the way up through Plains, where there's some type of mini boss that's the gatekeeper that actually kind of introduces you to the mechanics ahead of time of what the boss will actually do, and you have to be able to get past this mini boss first.
And yeah, Bunny, as soon as you mentioned that castle, then I remember playing in there. It slipped my mind in EQ2 Nectropos. But yeah, basically just what's a good term for that? I thought there was an actual term for those types of bosses. I forget what they're called. They weren't gatekeepers. They weren't. But yeah. I'm scrolling up through chat as well at the moment.
Yeah.
Did you have any involvement in Velcator?
Not on my side. That was we talked about that. Was it who? but someone else, one of you guys talked about Valkators, like that came up.
Bill did.
Yeah.
Fisher. Yeah. Yeah. Loot socks. I couldn't. Is that a command or is that a misspelled criticism? ABQ-SC2, why was Gates of Discord so difficult when it launched? If you watch Akil Hooper's VOD, so if you go to the collection, Akil will get into that one a bit. Todd, I don't know if you had anything to add to it, but I know Akil
hopped
on it.
I think he covered it pretty well. Permafrost itemization. So there was some technical challenge around that zone related to Vox being in there. So I think their itemization got improved over time, but just due to the way the dungeon, remember you have those small gates that you have to do. Back in the day, people would get sucked in those gates and you'd be stuck in the ceiling. That was horrible. The giants and casters through walls, that wasn't a great.
Yeah.
It was just too compact for what was in there. It needed to be a much more spread out zone. Yeah, I think everyone's gotten stuck in the gate. One who's ever went in there has gotten stuck in the gate at some point. Oh, funny story though with permafrost. That was actually, if I remember correctly, I was christened a GM or a guide. Like I was actually playing, and I got asked to, I was a candidate to be a guide, and I had to be online. And I think they actually came up to me and said, are you ready to be a guide? And I think they literally just like turned my character into a GM right there when I was still in group. And I had to at that point leave group. Or I think at that point my account had some avatar powers at that point, so I could start seeing additional information that I was not supposed to see as a player.
By the time I became one, it was all super secret. You can never reveal to any of the mortals that you have these powers.
Well, I mean, once you become, even back then, a guide, you just stop playing because the world. Now you had a whole new world to explore, right? You were now able to go anywhere with restrictions, right? You weren't supposed to go to the plains and stuff like that. But at that point, you were now flying to a place to help people. So that was kind of, in a sense, another adventure. You didn't really need to worry about grinding for EXP anymore at that point.
Yeah, and it wasn't until I got on the team and was told to raid more by my mentor that I really got back in and was very much playing.
Well, that was Rich. That was Luckland, right? So we all were given separate accounts. We all got characters buffed to 60, I think 60. Or no, was it 50? With regular of the appropriate time and told to go, not the best stuff, just we were told to play the game. Because at that point, people had so much that they kind of we actually started out of tune with the game that we were creating because we weren't. My monk, an Ixar monk named Beat 'em Up.
Yeah, I used my main tune, so for me it was slightly different because before Rich even did that stuff, Burke, Steve was like, "Hey man, like you should come over and check, like have your character copied over to my server and then play with my guild." And because he was just mentoring me on a lot of stuff, so he wanted me to see it, and that was even before the Lucklin thing, like before I got pulled up or whatever. But then I remember later on, yeah, it was that discussion we were constantly having about like, and some of it was positive, some of it was, I know, probably a bit negative or whatever for some folks, but it was like, hey, folks, you got to play the game more, you know, like generally speaking across the entire team, like you got to play the game more. And I remember that being the period where it was like, all right, get these characters and throw people on and stuff. So yeah. Cool, dude. Well, I'm gonna catch up on a couple things here in chat. Some of it I don't know that we can really comment on. But yeah. So I'm hitting. It looks like we're hitting the hour mark here. If you want to do your errands, and like I said, this was meant to just be a quick pop on to see if my bitrate would actually hold, and it did. I've got a few other things to fix, but it'd be rad if you want to schedule more time. It looks like it was helpful to have the questions in Discord in the questions area. My bot has woken up again, so those of you that are interested that aren't a part of our Discord, click that link, and then there is a channel that's just questions. That's what Todd was reading from earlier. If you haven't seen his previous appearance or the appearance of other folks, here's the collection link. I'll go ahead and clip this and put it up there as well. I mean, it's a couple hours of good stuff, I think. Yeah, not kicking you off, Todd. You don't have to go. I'm just trying to be the polite host and
well,
honor.
I mean, if people good questions, I'm all for it. You know, this is the EQ stream. I keep in mind, like after I said the Vanguard and landmark stuff, you know, I was on H1Z1, helped launch that. That was like my other. I was pretty proud of H1Z1. That was the one that kind of got back into with Twitch. Like I think it was the first year that Twitch here in San Diego, H1Z online tournament, and Ninja actually gone. So that was kind of like, that was a pretty cool historical Twitch related thing to be part of that.
Speaking of, one of our former coworkers is up there in Twitch as well. There's a Twitch link as well. He is a head of global something. I won't give all the details. We can talk about it offline. But he was a young man that came into the industry on EQ, if I'm not mistaken. We may have been his first industry job in a production role. And yeah, so
yeah, I mean, EverQuest has kind of opened the door for tons of people's long, you know, careers. I mean, people are. I mean, I look at my LinkedIn, and everyone, even if they had a short stint at SOE when it was EverQuest, they've definitely progressed well in their career, and all are still involved in tech, some social gaming, something.
Yeah, it's
no, and Dr. Disrespect did not work at SOE.
Todd pulls out the wig and his sunglasses, the
Could
mustache.
not pull it off. So just a quick recap out from Expand. Worked on Kunark, Velius, Pop, Loy, Eldon, and a little bit of Gates. But mostly as an engineer for the later ones, developer for Kunark and Velius. slash engineering for those couple ones.
Oh yeah, the person I was referencing is a he's an executive at Twitch, not a streamer. Hold on one second, Todd. I'm gonna try something real quick and see if it refreshes because it feels like the stream the video degrades on Discord over time. So I'm gonna bounce you to a US server real quick, and then I'm gonna bounce you back to Europe if it'll let me, and see if that sort of refreshes things. All right, so we'll see if that does anything to help.
Was it breaking up?
It is in my ear. I don't know if anybody else is hearing it as well, but I assume that it's coming through like that. So it was just a little bit more breaking up there in the last few minutes than previously. So. H1Z1 at release without BR was fun as the F word. Right on. Building bases and shit was fun. Yeah, Michelle said she's on Twitch and it's breaking up badly and delayed voice. Is it for mainly Todd or am I breaking up as well? Because at this point, I think our main challenge is going to be using something that is not Discord. Both of us. That's not good then.
Well, I mean, it is almost 2.5 hours, so we're just going to blame it on leaks.
Yeah. Refresh your. Sometimes with Twitch as well, you got to refresh the page.
Yeah, if I'm breaking up, it's most likely Discord then.
Yeah. So I'll explore a different option. I was hoping Discord would work just because of what it is, right? I mean, it seems like a platform for game type shit, but.
There was also some background noise, so I don't know if that was might have triggered it too.
Tiered all.
Anyway,
Thank you for the follow.
Probably a good time to if my stream's going bad.
Yeah. The next time I'm gonna play around with some other options and see if we can get something better. Because basically, at the end of the day, as long as I've got a video that I can cap, I can do all sorts of cropping and crap and slobs. So we can use pretty much anything.
Cool.
Bunny says, "Go do your stuff." All right.
Yeah.
Todd, thank you. Folks, hit them up in Discord. Hit them up in game. Drop questions in Discord. I'll link it again for those of you that are new. Watch his previous VOD. If you came in late, you can watch this VOD as well. I'll go ahead and crop this one out and put it up there. Yeah, man.
All right.
I'll talk to you in a bit on Discord.
Yeah, I'll see you in game.
You do.